At the start of the movie, ex-Defense Intelligence Officer Frank Carden welcomes Davies, a new member, to his highly effective clandestine mercenary team. The team discusses how to effect their next mission and sets up a plan to eliminate their next target, billionaire Lydell Hammond Sr. The billionaire is known to be very reclusive and has been targeted, even though he's a major contributor to the political high societies, because he had recently publicly opposed stem cell research. As the first step of the plan, Frank and his partner kill the billionaire's son, Lydell Hammond Jr., while successfully making it look like a hit-and-run accident. Then, Frank goes to a small town and rents an apartment under an assumed persona. However, as he steps out of his apartment and drives to the city to effect the next step, he gets into a car accident. Frank is rushed to the hospital, and as the nurses treat him, they find a gun in his pocket and alert the local police. Frank gains consciousness the next day and finds himself in a hospital bed, handcuffed to the bed. The local chief of police comes, introduces himself, and explains that when he ran the serial number on the gun, he has found that Frank is a wanted man. He posts 2 of his officers for the night and tells Frank that the U.S. Marshals will come get him the next day. Frank is out of options. He steals a phone from the nurse and calls his team to inform them of the situation. Davies argues that it's too risky to try to save Frank and proposes to just move on and finish the mission without him, until the team reminds him that he won't get paid without Frank, which forces him to join the rest in trying to save Frank. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., ex-cop and single father Ray Keene is very disappointed in his son Chris, as the young man has just been suspended from school for smoking weed. Ray tries to reach his son and bond with him so that he can teach him to make better decisions. So he makes a plan to take Chris camping in Chris's favorite wooded site uptown. So the father-son duo wakes up early, prepares, and leaves for the site. They get there and start their journey through the site, with Chris taking the role of the guide. They walk deep into the forest, enjoying the scenery. Elsewhere, U.S. Marshals get Frank, cuff him, and drive him to D.C. During the ride, the U.S. Marshals try to find out what Frank was doing in the small town, but they fail. After driving for a couple of hours, as the U.S. Marshals' car passes through a wooded area, which happens to be the same wooded area Ray is with Charles, their road is blocked by a car. The driver of the U.S. Marshals' car gets off to check it out, but is shot dead by Frank's team, who starts shooting furiously and kills everyone in the car except Frank and one of the U.S. Marshals. The car then slides and tumbles over the bridge into the river underneath. Frank and the other officer manage to get out of the car, but continue to fight amongst themselves in the river. Ray sees the man struggling in the water and runs to help him. As he pulls them out of the water, the officer tells Ray that Frank is a prisoner, gives him his gun and the keys to the cuffs, and gives Ray the responsibility to get Frank into custody before passing on. Frank pleads with Ray to let him go, but Ray isn't having it. Frank even tries threatening him, but that doesn't work either. Ray sets Chris by his side and Frank in front of him at gunpoint and leads them. Frank's team on the other side of the forest finish cleaning up the scene of the accident and enter the woods, hoping to rescue Frank. After some time, Frank's team gets on Frank's trail and follows them. Ray sees this, changes, and adapts his routes with the help of Chris to avoid being caught. They walk all day, and around the evening, it starts to rain. The Keenes and Frank reach a steep ledge, and Chris urges them to slowly go down and hide in a cave under it so that they can be safe from their pursuers and the rain. As they climb down, Chris miscalculates and slides off the ledge with slipperiness of the rain. Frank reacts with instinct and holds on to Chris until the boy regains his footing. Ray pulls him, then they safely make it to the cave. They spend time getting to know each other, and Chris asks Frank what he does for a living, to which Frank vaguely answers by stating that he removes obstacles to progress, which annoys Ray, but they peacefully spend the night. Frank's team follow Frank and the Keenes up to the ledge, but don't see the cave, and so they stay there on top of the ledge for the night. During the night, Davies gets a call from the head of the U.S. Marshals, Gwen Miles, whose office has used Frank's services from time to time, tells him to take Frank out and promises him $500,000 for the task so that the government won't be implicated. Davies happily accepts the offer. A few hours later, Gwen Miles and a few of her officers are joined by FBI liaison officer Rob Jennings in coming to the small town to set up a command post to oversee and conduct the search for Frank in person. The next morning, having extra motivation to find Frank, Davies rises early and wakes the rest of the team to start the search. They then spot Frank below as Ray leads him out of a cave. Ray leads Chris and Frank out of the cave, and during their way, Frank and Ray start getting to know one another and bond with mutual respect in a way that's unexpected for men from opposite sides of the law to. After walking for a bit, they run into a couple who came for a hiking trip named Sandra and Lachlan. Ray convinces the couple to join them, as it's dangerous to be on their own. Frank's team starts following Frank, but are slowed down while trying to stay out of the view of the choppers, who had been sent by the local police to expedite the search. At the command post, Gwen surmises that Frank must be in this town to assassinate the president, who will be visiting in the next couple of days, and starts to make the necessary security arrangements. One of Frank's team members flags down the chopper, with Davies sleeping on the ground, faking an injury next to him. The officers flying the chopper land it to help, thinking there was an emergency. Davies shoots and kills them both, and Frank's men come in possession of the chopper. They fly around and see Frank, the Keens, and the couple crossing a fragile-looking woody bridge. Just as they cross over, Ray gives the guide to Chris to point at Frank and employs the Lachlans to help destroy the bridge, hoping to slow the men behind them. Little does he know that the men are zeroing on them from above. Upon seeing the chopper, Chris, thinking it's the police, gives the gun to Lachlan and starts excitedly calling for help. Frank's men come closer, and as soon as they see Lachlan pointing a gun at Frank, they shoot and kill him, which causes terror among the group. Frank uses this opportunity to run away with Ray, close on his heels, after getting Chris and Sandra back into the woods for cover. Ray chases Frank and finds him getting ready to board the chopper. He manages to shoot at the tail rotor of the chopper while trying to shield himself from the bombardment of their shots. This shocks Frank's men, and they have a hard time trying to control the chopper enough to land it, and so they turn and head back, but the chopper goes down a few miles away. However, none of Frank's men are hurt. At the command post, all of the officials are getting restless and desperate to get the answers and conclude the exertion. Gwen keeps getting orders from her bosses to take care of Frank, which she passes on to Davies. Frank's disappointed that he couldn't escape and rejoins the group. Sandra is extremely shaken up and is barely trying to hold on, while Ray is trying to forge on. Chris provides the inspiration as he proposes to go to the cabin used as a camp management office by the back of the forest. The rest agree and walk the rest of the day and get there around the evening. There, Ray cuffs Frank to a bedpost and tells Chris to watch him while he talks to Sandra and comforts her about what happened. Later, Chris apologizes to his father for getting them in this mess. Ray tells him not to worry about it, and the father-son duo grow in better understanding. Frank's men dust themselves off and follow Frank's trail to the cabin and wait until it's dark to open their attacks. Once it's dark, Frank's men demand for Ray to let Frank go, threatening to attack if he doesn't. Frank also promises to protect them at all if Ray lets him go, and pleads with him to do it as soon as possible before it's too late. Ray is tired and doesn't want to put anyone in danger any longer, so he once again gives the gun to Chris and the keys of the cuffs to Frank. As Frank starts to uncuff himself, one of the men jumps into the cabin, shocking Chris into shooting him. The rest follow, and Ray fights them off and kills them. The last survivor attacks Ray, but is shot dead by Sandra. Then, during the commotion, Frank snatches Chris and takes him as a hostage. Davies, the only survivor of Frank's men, tries to shoot and kill Frank from afar, but doesn't succeed. Frank takes Chris, warns to kill him if he screams, and escapes through the woods. The police arrive and interview Sandra and Ray about what happened and promise to do everything they can to find Chris. Gwen calls Davies and orders him to kill Chris as well, fearing that Frank might tell the boy about his clandestine job. Ray returns home and watches the news to distract himself. He hears about Lydell Hammond Jr.'s funeral, and it catches his attention as the journalist describes Lydell Hammond Sr. as obstacle to progress, and it clicks in his mind that the billionaire is Frank's next target. He calls the local authorities and tells them that the president is not the real target, but they ignore him. So Ray decides to go to the funeral and handle Frank himself. There, Ray sneaks up on Frank, and as he demands to know the whereabouts of Chris, Davies, who has also followed Frank to the funeral, takes a shot at them from afar. Frank spots Davies and makes his way to him discreetly and kills him. However, he fails to execute his plan to execute Lydell Hammond Sr. because of all of the distractions. Frank gives Ray the keys of the hotel room where he kept Chris. Ray goes there with the local authorities and rescues Chris. Frank tracks down Gwen and threatens her that should anything bad happen to the Keens, he will be coming for her, which shocks and terrifies her. Ray invites Sandra to a barbecue, and while they spend some time together, he hears on the radio that Lydell Hammond Sr. has passed on in a boating accident. But Ray knows better than to believe that. The end. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.